Meeting Doctor here. Kind of a story time a little bit. A few years ago, I got an interesting, or I saw an interesting post on my LinkedIn feed, right? And I've got lots of connections, which is great. And I see lots of interesting things that come through my feed. And this was particularly interesting because some people that I had was acquainted with while I was a professor at Creighton University. I think it's Noam Ebner and Jen Reynolds. Uh, Great people. They posted that they were putting together a book about Star Wars and conflict resolution. And you think Star Wars, you think of uh, rather robust conflict resolution in the form of lightsabers and and Death Stars and all the things Star Wars, right? And the interesting thing about that is I without really thinking too much about it, I thought, oh, they're looking for proposals for chapters. I'll just put in a proposal to analyze meetings in Star Wars, right? And uh, the funny thing is, they're like, "Oh, this sounds really interesting. We'd love to have a chapter from you on this." And so, quite literally, me and my team each took different movies from the Skywalker saga, and we counted the number of times they had a meeting, and whether it was a light meeting, so among people that were on the light side, or um, and then counted the number of meetings on the dark side, and then meetings where both the light and the dark were represented, right? As they came together for some conflict resolution, right? It was really fascinating. It was really kind of interesting to see both, the idea of Star Wars and meetings, but also just thinking about how we depict meetings in in our media, in the fun things that we watch and the fun things that maybe we read or whatever. It's also funny that we have podcasts now where they're essentially just having a meeting and we're listening. So there's something about meetings, but regardless, we looked at this and it was fascinating to see just how often they had meetings that were essentially meetings. People sitting around a table. Now, granted, we don't have, thankfully, in my staff meetings and hopefully in yours, you don't have a Darth Vader character who can just squeeze his fingers and choke the guy across from him. That's probably good, but I think there are times when we may have felt like we'd like to do that, right? So anyway, it was a fun chapter to write. This is the book. It's called Star Wars and Conflict Resolution. Uh, it's been out for a couple years. I don't know how well it's sold, as it were, but if you're curious about Star Wars and conflict resolution, check it out. If you're curious about meetings in Star Wars, check it out. It's just kind of fun, and sometimes we write things as scientists and they're not terribly fun. This was truly fun to analyze meetings in the Star Wars and the Skywalker saga of Star Wars. So anyway, check it out. Probably we'll talk more about it later on and get into the nitty gritty of the meetings that we did analyze in Star Wars. But for now, just check it out and think about the media that you watch or that you read or that you partake of, and how do they depict meetings? Do you identify with the meetings they have? Do you have situations where you are interested and curious about what you're seeing? I know I'm curious about what you're seeing. So that's it for today. I'll see you next time.